All right, hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. Tonight, figured I'd jump on, do a little YouTube live. And one of the things that I've been thinking about, I don't know if a lot of you may have, or I don't know if you were around, if you remember 2 years ago, right before the pandemic, we hosted our own clinic in St. Augustine. And it was a really good deal for us. Had 150 coaches from 13 different states, and uh, something that I've always wanted to do, and something that I thought that we could get done. And when I think about it now, obviously the pandemic came. We haven't done it in the last 2 years, and then after the pandemic, it's hard to get the venue that we use. We use an Embassy Suites. It's brand new, right on the ocean, and I think the venue was a big part of the reason why the clinic was such a success. But now I'm trying to get back into doing the next one and trying to figure out if we can, if we can't get that venue, do we use a different venue? And the reason I think about it all the time is some of the we had a couple of our businesses there, as sponsors, and Dome Hats was one of them, and Game Strat was there, and Just Play was there, and so when I think about doing one again, a couple of those business partners kind of mentioned, are live clinics still a thing? And my answer was, I think yes. And obviously they're asking because during the pandemic, and now what you see so much is virtual clinics and online clinics, and so many different avenues that you can go to research football, talk to people. But to me, I still think live clinics are a really big deal. I think the networking that goes on at them, the ability to be in a room with other coaches, other people in the profession. I still like listening to people speak. I still like taking notes. But I feel like, and I've been going to clinics now for 25 years. And obviously with what we do on YouTube and in the Twitter space, um, and now you see people doing stuff on Instagram and TikTok and other places. Obviously now, it's a little bit different world we live in, Zoom calls, things like that. But I still feel like there's value to be in person at a clinic. I still feel like there's value to network with other people. I still feel like there's value in being able to listen to somebody live, ask questions live. I still think there's value in being in convention centers with hundreds of coaches, to where you could have breakout sessions, you could meet and talk to people. Um, but in going to clinics now for probably since 1996 or 97, so probably 25 or 26 years of going to clinics, and obviously mostly Glacier and Nike stuff. And I feel like the last, I don't know, 8 or 10 years, I just feel like they're kind of changing. I don't think there's as much football out there anymore. I think a lot of the talks are now becoming philosophical. I think they're now becoming culture and deals like that, which are all great things. And obviously, when I was a head coach, those are things that I had to worry about, and things that we had to look at all the time. And so there's nothing wrong um, with those topics. But the last Nike clinic that I went to 2 weeks ago in Orlando, obviously Nike brings their big names in, and there's some good speakers there, but almost every speaker, the topic was philosophy, culture, what we're doing with our program. So to me, I think there's still a space to have clinics that are almost pure football. Clinics that are X's and O's, and clinics. And to me, it would be setting up the schedule, and the value in setting up the schedule to say, all right, we're going to have one strength guy. We're going to have at least one special teams guy. Probably, one coach that wants to talk about philosophy or culture, but the other 7, 8 speakers are going to be offensive, defensive speakers that are going to speak on football. They're going to speak on X and O's because, I think in the clinic space, what I see nowadays is everybody's kind of afraid for whatever reason to give away information. And I never really understood that. I know people ask me all the time, with all the stuff you put on YouTube, Do you worry about the teams you're playing? Do you worry about your Patreon site? And one of the things I tell people all the time is it's a discredit to coaches if you think that they don't have, depending on when you play them during the season, if you think they don't have 6, 8, 10 films that they've evaluated and broken down to understand what you do, then I think you're discrediting your opponents. You're discrediting the coaching profession. So I never really worry about what, per se, what information we give away, because I know I'm never giving away the terminology to what we may call things. I'm not giving away hand signals. The X's and O's part of it, the diagrams on a board. I think they see that when they watch film. So when I go to these clinics now and I sit through all these talks, it's hard to find, you got a notebook out, you're ready to go, and it's hard to find anybody that wants to talk offense or defense. And I know there's a lot of it going on Twitter. I know there's a lot of Zoom calls. I know there's a lot of breakout stuff through social media. But, to me, where I think there's an avenue now, I agree with you, Philly. Hopefully there will be a change. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk a little bit about this tonight is I want to get back into, that scenario again with clinics. And the hard part is, I don't know if you can ever challenge, like Nike and Glazier. They have the financial support, they have the backing, they have the name. So I don't know if you're ever going to challenge them. You're definitely not going to challenge them on a national circuit, but I think there's a space for somebody to be out there, and you see them all the time, right? You see all the different ones. You see the wing tee clinics and spread clinics, and they're still going on all over the place. Obviously, we got in and did one. Timing wasn't very great with the pandemic. After that, a lot of people asked me to do virtual clinics, and to me, it's just not the same. I want to do it in person, and I think people being able to travel as a staff. I think obviously, like today, it was 86 degrees in Jacksonville. So if it's January or February and you catch a weekend like this, either way, if it's not 86 degrees, it's probably better weather than the Northeast, the Midwest, and a lot of places in the country. So, I think guys being able to get out as a staff, guys being able to take trips as a staff, guys being able to take a day or two off for professional development. I think those are all really big things. And I still think that there's a space for football in a live setting, coaches talking in a live setting. Now, the great thing about what we did was it was all high school coaches. So we tried to keep the game relevant to what we do. The kind of the title of what we did was, our game, our problems, our solutions was kind of the quote unquote, let's just call it the slogan for the clinic. Because I think sometimes when you go to listen to the college and the NFL guys, even the guys that do talk on X's and O's, I think sometimes they're talking about things that maybe aren't conducive. Like you never hear guys talking about defending the wing tee, defending single wing, defending flex bone. You don't see those now 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I first started the clinics, you used to see those topics all the time. Almost every room, there'd be 4 or 5 speakers at a time, and you could pick out a room that was running the wing tee, defending the wing tee, running single wing, defending single wing, flex bone stuff. And now, like at the past Nike I was at, I think there were only 2 to 3 speakers at a time. So you only had 2 or 3 choices of what you could go to. There were some sessions where there was no X's and O's, techniques, fundamentals. And obviously there were some sessions that had that stuff, and that was great. But to me, I think there's a space to for a business or somebody to get in there and, run some clinics. Would I like to do it nationally? Yes. Would I like to be able to travel? But you'd have to have feet on the ground in other places. You'd have to have people with the ability to help you with hotels and speakers and things like that. So, the Glazier and the Nike part, they're national names. They've been doing it for a long time. They've got a lot of, the financial power to do what they want to do. But I just feel like that clinic experience is kind of I don't want to say it's dying because I still think there's something out there, but I just feel like in for what I've gone to and what I've seen the last couple of years, it's just not the same anymore. So, I know what we do on YouTube is obviously a way for guys, but it's 24 minutes at a time on a topic that, I choose the topic, I make the video. Being able to set up a schedule where you're looking for different speakers to speak on different things, and you're out there trying to find. We had two speakers at a time, and I think every time there was at least one offense and one defense going at the same time, or there was, maybe I think we had maybe a head coach talking about program stuff with an offense or a defensive guy. So almost every session you had a chance. To me, that would be the thing. If you had enough rooms and enough speakers, there should be at least one offense and one defense going on. If somebody is talking culture or philosophy, then there needs to be a technique, fundamental scheme talk going on. Or a strength talk going on, or a special teams talk going on. I think you have to give guys out there. I think there's enough guys out there that still want to talk and hear about football, right? And not that the other thing, I have this conversation all the time with different people. And, when you look at it and you say, okay, well, like some of the speakers said, it's not about ball plays. Without our culture and what we do with our locker room, none of these things matter. And I agree. I 100% agree. But once you've got culture and philosophy in a locker room that's bought in, how do they line up? Do you just put 11 guys on the field and say that your culture takes care of everything? I don't think that's the case. If you don't teach them techniques and fundamentals, how do they understand how to play blocks? How do they understand how to get off blocks? How do they understand how to block people? How do they understand how to tackle? How do they understand how to throw? How do they understand how to catch? So I think techniques and fundamentals are important. After techniques, fundamentals, culture, philosophy, at some point you have to line up. So I think sometimes people there's a misnomer out there that it's too much scheme. And to me, there's an audience out there that wants to be scheme, right? I don't think that's 100% the answer. Obviously, a lot of the things we do on a whiteboard are content creation about schemes. But at the same time, I think all of those things matter. I think your culture and your philosophy with what you do with your team matters. I think techniques, fundamentals, and drills matter. But I think the scheme also matters, because once you get onto the field and you play an opponent, how do you line up? How do you run a play? Does your offense go out there and say, okay, guys, we've taught you how to block. We've taught you how to run routes. We've taught you how to throw and catch. Our philosophy in our locker room is great. Our culture is great. Go out there and make plays. Well, how do they make plays if they don't know what they're running? How do they make plays if they don't know who's lining up where? So I think all those things are important. And I think when you get into clinic settings, I think you need to be able to address all of those things, right? So, to me, I would be interested to hear from other coaches. What do you want in a clinic experience? I always thought a clinic experience should have some type of social aspect to it too. So whether you're throwing a social at night for guys to get around and have a few drinks or food or snacks or whatever you want to do, I think that's important, rather than just letting guys. A lot of guys are going to go out on their own with their staff, and that's great. A lot of guys they need to use that time for whatever they want to use it, but I think you need to throw that out there. I think you should tie some other events. I think the clinic setting would be pretty cool if you tied some other events to it. Things that people want to do. So maybe, maybe especially for us in Florida, maybe in January or February, you tie a golf outing to it, or you tie, the opportunity to do something that guys in the Northeast and the Midwest can't really do in January, February. So, making the clinic experience kind of a weekend retreat for coaches, right? Because what are we there to do? We're there to learn, but at the same time, we're there with staffs. We're there kind of bonding. We're there trying to grow as a staff and hanging out with one another and trying to learn more about guys that we don't know much about, right? And I think in the perfect clinic setting for me, when I think about it, and like I said, if I had the financial means to do it, or if I had the financial backing to do it, I would certainly throw my hat into the clinic ring. Again, don't have the name of Nike and Glazier, but I think word of mouth after a while of doing it, I think we could run clinics that people would want to go to. I think we could do things that would draw interest from people that are looking to get away for a little bit. Um, and I would, to me, it would be about the customer, right? What do guys want to hear? It's kind of the same thing with Play Fast and YouTube stuff. If people wanted videos on certain topics, then I think you've got to provide them with those videos. If you can't do it, then maybe you need to get somebody else who can. So, the social media world's great. The Twitter stuff we do is great. YouTube's great. But again, the live in person deal, I think there's so many young coaches that are just missing out. Um, guys that are growing up now. Yes, you have way more. When I started in 96, 97, you had to go and speak with other coaches. You had to travel to places to talk to guys. Now there's so much information. And again, like I said, wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the YouTube world, and never gonna, never gonna knock things like that. But you can get on the internet now and search a topic, and you can find so much great information that's out there. So I think that's part of the reason the kind of clinic world has died down a little bit, as well. But to me, it's all about professional development, right? We're in a profession. We are professionals like everybody else in the world. Teachers go to professional development all the time. Schools have professional development set up all the time. Business people go to the professional development all the time. So, I think it's important for us to create a social aspect to professional development, and creating things that um, you know, guys that want to be in places and settings with other people in the profession. Yeah, when I had a couple guys that were at the clinic that we did last time, Philly, and obviously I'm from Long Island, so I think I could definitely swing a Northeast one. I have enough people up there that I know that coach up there, and enough friends that still live there, that I think I have enough feet on the ground to do one there. I had guys from Arizona that said they would love to try and put one together out there. Uh, and it just kind of stinks, the timing of everything, because it took me a while to figure out if we could actually do this. It took me a while to find a venue and a date that could compete. Obviously the first one we did, I didn't want to do it around Glazier Nike, because we haven't run one yet. I tried to pick a date when there were no other clinics going on. And the reason I did that is because, not knowing if you could compete with those people, if people saw a Glazier clinic and a Playfast clinic, which one were you going to go to when it's the first Playfast clinic? Trying to have one at the other vendors didn't have to worry about where they were going to go, because that was the other thing from a business standpoint. Like, we had 5 vendors there that support Playfast football, and it's a more intimate setting for those guys to try and talk to people. It's a lot nicer than, you know, having 50 competitors in there, and your booth is in one location and it's not the greatest location, and your competitor's booth, we didn't have any competition there. Our vendors that were at our clinic were the only vendors in their genre, or in their um, you know uh, space that they are selling products in. Right, their demographic was coaches. The demographic that they needed to reach out to were all in the room. So that was important as well from a business standpoint. But definitely want to get them going again. Definitely want to, especially after going to the Nike 2 weeks ago. It really sparked my interest to kind of get that avenue going again, because I think it's something that we're missing. I think there's something that's not really out there. Um, and then I think the great thing with Play Fast Football is you could ask people what they, you know, I think you can ask people and say, all right, like, who do you guys want to hear? Is there any topics? What do you want to hear? What's going on? What do you need to defend? And you could, to me, I would throw messages out there to the audience and say, hey, what do you guys want to hear about? What do you want to, I would still try. It would be neat to have one keynote speaker, maybe a big name that would draw some interest. But to me, I think high school guys that have the same problems and the same issues that you guys have with talent and time and coaching staffs and facilities, to me, they're going to provide better information sometimes, because they live in our world, right? They deal with the same things that we deal with. Um, the big names are great. Obviously, what they do is phenomenal. They are at the forefront of everything schematically, analytically. So it'd be great to have one of those guys, but I still think, it's something out there to say that it's guys that are speaking on topics that are relevant to you. things that you see, things that you face. And then when you ask a question about the problems you have, that guy kind of understands. Maybe he doesn't fully understand if he's at a little bit different program than you are, um, as far as numbers, facilities, coaches, but he at least has an understanding or a better understanding of what you're trying to ask him because, sorry, he deals with it in a similar scope. And the other great thing about when we did our clinic, all the guys that spoke stayed at the same hotel. They didn't race to get on a jet and get out of there. And then when we did the social and we did lunch, the guys that talked, they were at the social and they were sitting down having lunch. So guys could actually approach them and say, hey, coach, you were talking about, such and such on offense or defense, or when you guys run tackle trap, you said that you like to do this or that or whatever it is. And they were able to talk to the speakers, right? When you go to the bigger clinics now, guys speak. And if it's an assistant coach or a college guy, a lot of times they're going to hook you up with a GA or somebody and say, hey, if you leave your emails down here, we'll get this all out to you and we'll get it back to you. And if it's a bigger name guy, as soon as they're done speaking, they're going to be escorted out and they're going to go right back to the airport. So I think it was neat to have some of the speakers at the social, at the lunch, at all the aspects that, sitting in and listening to other people speak. One of the neatest things about the Nike that I thought was pretty cool was when Alex Golish was speaking on tempo stuff, James Franklin was in the room and he asked like 4 different questions because he was speaking next. So to me, when the head coach at Penn State is in a room asking questions like that, to me is what it's all about, right? So the guys that are speakers are also clinic attendees. They're also there to, they're also there to learn and grow and do all the things that they want to do. So definitely trying to get it off the ground again. Definitely something that we want to do. And again, I would be interested when we do. I can't get the same venue right now, and I'm kind of torn right now. I really want to put one together in 2023, but it's now starting to get a little bit later. I can't get the venue. The venue was everything. So I'm kind of torn between holding out for the venue and trying to get them next year and see if we can get there ahead of time before the wedding season books up and see if we can get the same venue. If not, we're going to have to choose another venue. But, when it does come that time, something I want to ask everybody that's out there, hey, do you guys go to clinics? What has changed? What do you want to see? What do you like when you go to clinics? What do you wish there was more of when you are at a clinic? Get caught up in chasing internet. Before you did what you did and learned to solve problems that you face, can get lost in the depths sometimes. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's so much information at your fingertips now that you can almost overkill. There can be overkill with that information, and you can go a little bit too deep on your search for knowledge and what's out there. I think you've got to be careful where you go to get your knowledge and your information. I think now we live in a world where there's enough people out there doing it as a business venue that you've got to kind of, I go back and forth all the time. Guys ask about playbooks and guys ask about, different things that you may do. And obviously when you're in a business world, you want to generate business, right? And I've talked about this before on this channel, how that's kind of the worst thing that I do as a professional. But I think you got to be careful because there's so many guys out there trying to sell systems and trying to sell. I never want it to be about a system. I want it to be about football. I want it to be about information. I want it to be an avenue for people to say, all right, well, this may be one way that we do it. I want it to be an avenue for somebody to say, hey, that sounds a little bit different. Why do they spot drop when they play cover 3 instead of playing rip Liz match? What things are they worried about? What buzzwords are they using? Right. So I always wanted to provide another outlet for people to get their information, but I never wanted to be a system. I never wanted to sell anybody on something and say, hey, this is what we run. I have playbooks for this amount. I have this for that amount. Obviously in a business world, that's a better way to run a business because you got a product that you can sell. But the other thing I looked at was I see all these companies out there now that are producing all these videos and a housing platform for people to make videos and distribute their videos to people. And because that's kind of gone out the window too, right? I still see the championship production booths and I still see the books at clinics, but I don't really know if that's a thing anymore that people are into. I don't know. I used to love going to clinics and buying those DVDs. I used to love trying to get any tidbit of information I could get, but I don't really see that anymore. I see more of these online videos that people are doing. And I think it's great that coaches can monetize a product, by making certain videos. But I also think it stinks that, a couple people hold you hostage at times for where you need to go to get those videos. And, to me, it was one of those things you kind of missed the boat a little bit or at least we missed the boat when you have a website and a YouTube, platform that you're using and everything that you're doing is creating informational videos for people. I kind of wish I would have been there a couple of years ago at the forefront. If I knew any more about technology, I would have, liked to have been one of those companies that were housing videos because I think, between our fan base and followers and what we do, I think we could have found the speakers that people wanted to hear and the topics that people want to hear. And I think there's a lot of good topics out there and guys do a great job with those videos. And now technology, guys are so smart with technology now, it's easier to make those videos. But again, I think that's definitely an avenue for people. I think that's something that people are always going to be interested in, right? Especially in the off season. But I still think if you, I'm always open for X's and O's, Philly. Let me finish my one thought. So if you are, somebody who wants that information in the off season, or if you are somebody who, is always looking to research the next topic that's out there, or if you're somebody like me that gets bored and, you want to look at it, find a better way of doing things. Like I'm always looking at stuff all the time. All right. I don't know if it's stuff I'm going to use. I don't know if right now with what we're doing on defense and me just being the defensive coordinator, I'm not looking for a system or a change. What we do works. What we do is very good for us. What I'm looking for is protection pieces. What I'm looking for is ways to do what we do a little bit better. And so that's what I'm always searching. So I'm constantly looking for other teams that are playing three high. I'm trying to figure out why these college guys are kind of getting away from true tight front stuff and now playing almost old under stuff again with kind of shade five, 4 eye on the backside. I just want to make what I'm doing better, right? So I'm out there with everybody else looking for the same stuff. Solo coverage in 4-2-5, 3-3-5. What do you like the weak safety to do if 3 does not go vertical? Any difference with the middle safety? Okay, so we do not play any poach solo if that type coverage with the backside safety. One of the great deals about 3 high is we're constantly in a position with 3 safeties on the field to handle the trip side without needing the backside safety. And that's one of our, if you obviously you guys are here, so you follow videos, but that's like a big selling point for me. I never want to leave the backside single by himself. Do we play man? Yes, we do. Do we do things where the single's by himself? Yes, we do. I'd be lying to you if I said that we didn't. But in 3-by-1 checks, we never do anything with the backside safety. Now, when we did, the issue I always had was, what's his alignment? Is he, 10 yards in the A gap, reading number 3? If it's a wide number 3, does he have to change? Does he scooch out towards number 3 in his pedal? And then to me, the thing is, if 3 is not vertical, then I think you've got to gain him possibly back to the weak side, right? So if you're using, depending on what you're seeing from other teams, if you're using the backside safety as a poach player on 3 vertical, I think you now have numbers issues and run game issues back to the single, right? And that's what I always worried about. I always worry about, a lot of guys talk about the single. Do I worry about the single who might be their best player in the passing game? Yes, I do. But in high school football, I worry about runs back to the single, quarterback runs, being able to force and set the edge and have numbers to handle those runs. Because that's what I think guys are going to do more often in high school is they're going to get you into 3-by-1. And then, if they can throw it there, they will. If that guy's a dude, that's what they want. So I never try to give them that. But I think that's where they get you in the run game, in my opinion. I think if 3's not vertical and you're playing, that style of coverage. Um, I think, to me, alignment, where do you put them? Depth, where do you put them? If three's not vertical, I need to gain them back on the weak side, and that was always the issue I had was, do I have a kid that's good enough from that depth to transfer his eyes from three not being vertical back to where he may have to get downhill and be involved on that side? What do you need to do at the front to protect that side if you don't have him there as a force player? Do you kick the Will backer and the Mike backer, depending on what you're playing, to the trip side? Obviously, if you're playing, to me, in the 4-2-5, 3-3-5 world, when anytime we were playing that style of coverage, it was always a six-man box, right? So it was difficult for us with nobody getting a player. If you're playing that coverage, one of the great things about it, in my opinion, is it's same as corner, Sam, high safety. It's same as for them to the trip side because they're playing palms off of 1 and 2 like they always do. The Sam or the nickel, whoever that is playing swing deep a 3 like he always does. You're just taking the one of the things I try to talk to young coaches about all the time is the reason there are so many 3-by-1 checks, and the reason that's out there is if you're a quarters toolbox, middle of the field open team, the Mike linebacker was always the guy that had to run with 3 vertical. And when we lived in a world of 21 personnel or even 11 personnel with a tight end, you kind of lived in a world where the Mike could play 3 vertical. And then when the spread world and more 10, even 11 personnel with guys that can run came, your Mike linebacker's in the box. Your number 3 receiver is split out. He can't play 3 vertical. He can't run with 3 vertical. He can't fit the run and run with 3 vertical. So that's where all the 3-by-1 adjustments came in, right? Who's playing 3 vertical? Can we find deals like Philly's talking about where, solo coverage, where the coverage is the same for a lot of pieces and one guy on the backside's playing 3 vertical. So that's how we're handling 3 vertical. But for me, what we do is we carry, probably, I would say 2 to 3, maybe 4 deals. Stubby is obviously our number one, what we call mix. Some people call it mini. I don't know. There's 8,000 other terms out there. I always have to, when I see a 3-by-1 adjustment video, I see the terms that are on there, and then I always have to click on the video to watch to see if it's talking about what I think it's talking about because the terminology is so different. So our base is X out number 1, 2 read on 2 and 3 with 2 safeties, and then the Sam linebacker's the apex. I don't need anybody to play 3 vertical because I've got 3 vertical handled. So I can use my backside safety to bracket, create 3 for 2, 2 for 1 on the backside. I can use him as a run game player. I can now I now feel okay about widening the Mike or somebody out. For us, it's the Sam because we're a 3-2 box team. So the Mike and the Will are in the box, and the Sam is now underneath 3. So I've got somebody underneath 3 to take care of stick and all those deals. So I feel like I'm kind of discouraging those easy throws to 3. I feel like I've got 3 vertical played, and I feel like I've got the weak side handle. So that's always where we start. But that coverage has issues too, right? 2 vertical. We play with 3 safeties, so we feel like on paper we have a safety that can play 2 vertical. But there's so many. Those 2 guys are playing palms off of 2 and 3, so you're going to get palms beaters. You're going to get 2 on the post, 3 on the dig. You're going to get 3 going somewhere and trying to create route distribution issues. Depending on how hard you trigger the negative of 3, you're going to get 3 on the bubble and 2 on the corner. And now that you're playing it, man, the corner's not going to be involved. So now your safety on top of 3 has just miles to run to get to 2 on a corner route. You probably got to. We had to change how we played the bubble by 3 or the flat route by 3. We couldn't trigger it anywhere near as quick because obviously you got to look at the splits when you're playing coverages, right? Just like palms coverage. If 1 and 2 are a mile apart, you can't play that type of pattern match where if 2's to the flat, the safety's got to get to 1 if they're providing splits that don't allow you to do something. So you got to carry quarters or, what some people call man quarters or match quarters, however you want to look at it, where the safety plays 2 up and out. You've got to carry those deals because of splits. But we always start there. And then this year we played a little bit. We played our version of stump in the Saban world, which basically to me the easiest way to describe stump is it's a quarters concept unless goes vertical. If three goes vertical, it almost becomes cover three. So for us, the way we played it, if three was vertical, the high safety played the middle of the field, and the corner had the midpoint 1 and 2. And the reason we did that is I didn't want to borrow the backside safety over to play three vertical for all the issues that Philly brought up about what do you do with that guy if three's not vertical. The issues that I brought up about single side runs and single side passing. So when we played stump, we actually when we played it, we actually didn't use the backside safety. So we played stump as basically a very simplistic way of saying if three is not vertical, it's similar to quarters. If three is vertical, it's similar to three deep, and that's how I, kind of described it to our kids when we were teaching it. And then we play a cloud concept or a roll concept. In the three high world, it's great because the middle safety can now play three vertical. You've got the thing that got us a little bit this year with it, because when we do that, if you can imagine this in your mind, I always want to set this up. I don't have a whiteboard at home. I wish I did. I always want to set up these lives with a whiteboard or something behind. I thought it would be neat if I had a screen behind me where I could draw on things and do things for people that are more visual. If you can imagine, like in the cloud world or the roll kick world, we're playing cover 2 on 1 and 2. So our Sam is actually in between 2 and 3 now, much like he would be in solo coverage. So now that the stick game to 3, the intermediate quick passing game to 3, when we do that, the middle safety is a 3 vertical player. So we had to screw around with that a little bit last year and figure out where we wanted to play him. Could we play him in like a catch man scenario where if 3's vertical, we have him, but if 3 runs hitch, we could play that as well. If 3 went out, then I'd basically become almost a strong hook player because now with no threats of 3 verticals, if 3's out, I could help cut the post by 2 or the dig by 2. I basically would become a strong hook type player. So we play that coverage as well. And when we play that coverage, we don't need the backside safety either. So the one thing that I don't see as much anymore, and I don't understand why, I think our team does a good job of it. Most 3-by-1 coverages, just like 2 read, when you think about 2 read, and I talked about this yesterday when I did my 3 deep video. If you think about 2 read in a 2 removed world, if they ran spacing concepts, you would never cover them. So if they ran like snag spot and push the back, and you tried to stay in 2 read, they could probably throw that ball over and over and over again, and you never cover it because realistically, if 2 doesn't go to the flat and the corner doesn't hammer down or nail down on anything, you basically have a Sam and a Mike linebacker for 3 routes that you're trying to distribute, right? So if 2 runs spot, mini curl, or whatever, let's just say inside spot over the guard, and 1 run snag off the Sam, and the back pushes, right? And to me, it's more effective with push motion because of the leverage involved. But if the Sam has to widen with the back pushing, and the Mike has to match the spot coming inside, they'll never play the snag until they rotate differently, right? So the reason I'm bringing that up to you is because I think in 3-by-1, you have to have versions of coverage that flood it out. And I talked about this in our video yesterday. We do it with drop 8, probably, in the passing world, it's great. In the passing game, it coverage wise, obviously it's awesome. I think the reason why there's less than 6% of the snaps in the NFL are drop 8 is because it has so many other issues. But I think when the way we do it in our cover 3 stuff, dropping 8, we're always trying to flood the passing strength, right? So we're trying to get a hook player, a curl player, and a flat player to the strong side. Because if you go back and study the passing game and you go back and look at like the history of the passing game and you look at like old school Sid Gilman stuff, basically they kind of developed the passing game to where there's 6 underneath zones. There's only so many underneath players in a defense and base coverage. How do you flood? Thank you, Durant. The bottom line with the passing game is we have to put people in areas that they can't cover. The passing game has grown so much in the last 20 years with what guys do now. There's so many phenomenal really, really smart coaches in the passing game world. Um, but really, in essence, when you think about the passing game, we need to put guys in spaces that the defense doesn't have enough people to cover, right? So normally in a passing game, you think about vertical stretches, horizontal stretches, east west, high low, north south, however you want to look at it. We're trying to put two guys on one guy and create a conflict, right? Just like the RPO world does. So, um, in kind of the evolution of a lot of the passing game, they said, all right, there's six underneath zones and they have four players. And they're talking about curl flat, hook curl. And well, if we have more players in those zones and they can cover, we're going to force them to do something else in coverage, right? So, make a long story short, what I'm kind of getting at is in your 3-by-1 adjustments, you better have some type of flooded version. So the way I always look at it as a defensive coordinator, um, I need a coverage that the way I used to look at it, and now in the 3-high world, we get away with some other things, but the way I used to look at it is I need a coverage that can handle the trip side, and I need a coverage that can handle the single side. So anytime we used to flood the trip side, we would have to borrow the backside safety to play 3 vertical, right? When we were a 4-2-5 team or a 3-3-5 team. Now that we're in a tight front world and we stay in mainly 5-man boxes and 3 high safeties, we now have a way that we can flood the passing strength side of the coverage, and we don't use the backside safety to play 3 vertical because my middle safety is in position to play 3 vertical. When we were 4-2-5, we couldn't do that. If we played cloud or kick or even in the 3-3, our initial 3-3-5, the way we played it, if we were kick or cloud or roll or however you want to look at that coverage, somebody had to be responsible for 3 vertical. And I never wanted to use the mic doing that. So now in 3 high, my middle safety is basically taking the job of my Mike in the old days in that coverage. So now I can play him at 6 yards and handle 3 vertical. I can play him in a position where he looks like he's there to support runs. I can play him in a position where you can't just line up and throw stick every down. So that's what, to me, the beauty of 3 high is. So, we were basically stubby day one is how we started. Stump became our second adjustment, and then roll became our third adjustment. And in the 3 high world, all 3 of those coverages did not give the other team the option to get one-on-one on the backside. And now I won't say it didn't give them the option to run the ball to the weak side, because what we started seeing was a lot of GT extra with the back as a lead blocker. So teams were getting 3 pullers to the weak side, and we were getting the way we were playing like bash and things like that. We were getting in the tight front. We were getting Mike, Will, and safety over the top of those runs, but they were getting 3 blockers because we're in a 4-eye, the ball goes to the edge. But because we can't spill a blocker, all 3 pullers, the 2 pullers and the lead back, were all getting around the corner, and we had 3 bodies there. So it was 3-on-3. We never had an extra guy because the middle safety. And if you're in the 3 high world, you better get used to defending 3-by-1. Because once teams go to 3-by-1, it kind of gets you out of how you fit runs. The middle safety is kind of involved more as a coverage player to the 3-by-1 side. So you're going to see a lot of 3-by-1. You're going to see that's the first thing. People used to say 3-man surfaces, but I don't. 3-man surfaces don't really bother us all that much. If the other team is better than us and bigger than us, then yes. But schematically, they don't. And again, our middle safety is a really good player. He's about 6'1", 195 pounds. He can run. He's physical. He makes tackles. So the 3-man surface doesn't bother me. The thing that bothers me more is the 3-man surface that creates unbalanced X over 2-back stuff. That was, and again, so right now, people ask me all the time, what are you researching? Well, that's what I'm looking at right now. How do you play X over 2-back settings? How do you play read run game in the X over 2-back world? How do you play read run game in the X over quads world? Because that's what we started seeing more of towards the end of the season. A ton of X over 2-back, and then a ton of 11 personnel X over with the tight end hybrid player off the hip of the tackle. So it was 2-back theories, but it was also, it wasn't true inline. Now we saw both, right? We saw inline tight end X over 2-back, and then we saw 11 personnel Y off X over 2-back. So, that scenario creates 4 receivers to that side. Obviously, one of them can't go down the field to catch passes because it's X over, but you still have to line up to defend it. And then when you line up to defend it, um, you got to figure out how to fit runs. So X over, quads, two back theories, read, run game, bash, and power read. That gave us some fits towards the end of the year. So I think if you're three high, you're going to have to certainly live in that world. So we, to me, the biggest, and this is what I ask people all the time. If you were an offensive coach, or if any of you guys are an offensive coach that are on the chat right now or the live right now, if we were a base tight front three high team, what would be the next answer that you think would give you issues? Obviously, the one I go to all the time is four down, right? So if we're a tight team, if we can play four down, that's the one that you'd like to carry, because now I think teams have to be able to block your tight front, and they've got to be able to block four down all in the same week. Obviously, teams know how to block four down. They see it all the time, right? But your tight front for us is usually the game plan, bitch that everybody has to come up with ways that they want to attack the tight front. Well, if we could play four down from our tight front with the same personnel group on the field, and for us, it's the mic. But if we could play four down, that was always the next answer. So I ask our head coach all the time. I ask offensive guys all the time, if you have to scheme and game plan for tight three high, and you come up with all these answers you like for tight three high, what would be the next thing that would give you issues? Would it be four down? Would it be, having to block four down? Would it be three down that's not tight and it's moving? Would it be 3-4 stuff that is more split field in nature, but now you're creating different looks that you don't necessarily get all the time in your tight three high world? Is it movement? Is it a different front? That's, to me, where I'm doing all my research in the offseason. Our tight three high stuff is very good. It was very good to us. Yes, guys did some things at the end of the year that drove us nuts, and I've got to address those in the offseason. But to me, it's now the protection pieces. Once you get a system that you like, and I think this is the biggest thing that young coaches need to understand, there's so much information out there. There's so many plays. There's so many schemes. There's so many dickums, especially nowadays in the RPO world and the sim and creeper world. There's so much shit out there that is so good that you kind of get lost in the sauce sometimes with it. And to me, once you find a scheme that works for you, I think the biggest deal is now going and finding protection pieces. Like, those two words right now are my flavor of the month. And this offseason, that's like those are the buzzwords for me: protection pieces. And what I mean by that is, if tight three high is our base, and I feel good going into spring football, I finally, for the first time in a couple years now, I have a base system that I like, that was very good for us. When we were a 4-2-5 team, we were always dabbling in something odd. When we were a 3-3-5 team, we were always dabbling in something. And I feel like every spring I wasted, and this is my fault 100% being a dumbass, but I feel like I was always chasing my tail. And instead of having a structure that I absolutely loved, not that I didn't love the 4-2-5 and the way we played our 3-3 stuff, I did, don't get me wrong. But maybe it was just results based because of the teams I had or the players I had schematically and the opponents we were playing. I think we had some really good runs in the 4-2-5 and the 3-3 stack. We played for district championships, won district championships, made a run one year to the Elite Eight in the playoffs. So I'm not saying that we didn't have good runs with that, but I never felt like we were as dominant as we were at times this year playing tight three high. And in the spring, I was always kind of dicking around with other things. And now I feel really good that this spring, we know what our base is. We know what our identity is. We know what our hang our hat is. And now I'm just looking for protection pieces. What's the other thing I need to teach? What's number two? Like for me, it's like 1, 2, 3. And I'm not talking about pressures. I'm talking about within the scheme of what we're doing. If tight three high is 1, what's 2 and what's 3? The things that I know we can carry every week, not the things we need to carry one week to beat a certain team. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about every week with our personnel on the field without making drastic changes. Because that to me is the biggest thing. If you go from tight three high to 4 down and you always have to use a D lineman to get the 4 down, which we did at times last year. Well, guys are smart. They have your film. As soon as they see that fourth lineman come in, they know you're no longer in tight front. So now they don't have to call tight beaters, right? So one of the things that we dabble in all the time, and I know some guys kind of get freaked out by it, but we use our Mike as our fourth down lineman. That's what we do. When we find a Mike, that's the body type that we're trying to find. We're trying to find a guy that we don't ask to be in coverage very much outside of our spot drop, 3 deep stuff where he's a strong hook player. He's the fourth add-on in our pass rush stuff. He's a secondary contain guy in our pass rush stuff. He's a plugger in the run game. So we're always trying to find that body that could be a 5 technique if we needed them to be, because to me, that's the world we're living in now. If teams are playing fast and they're not switching personnel and they got these 11 personnel hybrid, offenses where that tight end could be 4 different things. Well, 2 things. 1, we're not going to get a chance to change personnel. And 2, if you're a tight front team, if you're an odd front team, if your fourth rusher coming in or your 14 lineman coming in is always a substitution, well, then the other team's going to know every time you go to that package because they're going to see a lineman come in. So we try to get to it. We try to get to it with the same personnel on the field. Now, last year, what I thought were our protection pieces, we played even front, tried to play it with 3 high. I need to thoroughly look at our film and what we did and what I need to do to get it to match 3 high, because there were some formations that I think screwed it up a little bit. And we ended up with the middle safety and the will kind of in the same spots. And really, if you're going to use the Mike as the fourth down and play 3 high, then the middle safety's his role's got to change a little bit. He actually almost has to play as if he's the Mike. One of the things I looked at this offseason, because our middle safety can do it, when we do go 4 down, I thought about playing my middle safety at Mike. A lot of his reads are the same. Now, let me change that. A lot of his fits are the same in theory with what we're trying to do. I think his reads and his eyes would change a little bit. He would have to now read. He would have to be sent with the inside linebackers week to week to either, if it's sniffer keys or tight end, Y off keys, fullback keys, he can do that, because if that player happens to be 3, then that's who we read off anyways. If it becomes half line or full line reads that our backers use, he would have to go with the backers and get those deals. So my first thought was, if we play 4 down, or if we play the mint front version where we protect the weak side C gap but still play tight front, I could take my middle safety because of his body type, and he's going to be even bigger next year. And now that I've had him for a year, he's going to be comfortable in 3 high. So the 3 high part of it is the easy part now. I felt like I could drop him down in our 4 down in our mint front and make him the Mike linebacker. His coverage components are the same. The coverage components we carry, he would probably be a 3 vertical guy. What would our 3-by-1 adjustments be? Now with him being down, that would be one of the issues, but he would be in a world where he would probably be playing coverages that I've already asked him to play. I play him down in 3-by-1 as a hook player. So that wouldn't be an issue. So that was one of the things we looked at, right? But I go back and forth and I start thinking about it, and I think to myself, well, if we're 3-2 box a majority of the time from our tight front, would us going to 3-3 stack with a 6-man box, would that be a bigger change? And obviously a lot of people would say no, because you're still 3 down and odd front. But if the tight front 3-2 box world is a completely different set of beaters than the 3-3 stack world, maybe that's the change. Maybe the 3-3 stack world with slants and movements is a better change than the 4 down world. Maybe that 3-3 stack world is more conducive than asking your Mike to be a 4th down player. So I kind of bounce back and forth between the two. Last year it was 4 down with 3 high. We played a lot of the boss front stuff last year, where we played shade 3-5 on the same side. And then we moved the shade back to the other side a little bit. We left them over there and we brought the 3 technique behind them to kind of create the over front. So we were getting into 4 down and trying to create the illusion. We've tried to create the illusion of what we wanted to do in the over front by giving people different fronts. We messed around a little bit. The last 2 years, I messed around a little bit with playing 6-man boxes with a 2-eye and a 4-eye on one side to the side of the Sam. and getting a Mike linebacker to know that any gap schemes to his side, he can get over the top right now. We're going to eat up. They should, probably never be able to get to either one of your backers if you play a 2 and a 4 on the front side of a gap scheme. Obviously, if you play a 3 and a 5 on the other side, they can still get to backers on that side. But if they ran gap schemes to the 2 and the 4, the guard and the tackle are going to be eaten up by down blocks on the 2 and the 4. So whether they run GT, GY, power, at that side that's got the 2 and the 4, both your linebackers can run like hell. So we've toyed around with that. A lot of 3 high out of a 4-2 box. Yeah, I think you can play 3 high out of a 4-2 box depending on what you're seeing. Obviously, 3-by-1 is a little bit of an issue. I think 2-by-2 is a little bit of an issue. We just got into a situation last year with how teams were setting the backs because of how I played the middle safety off of number 3. We kind of got in a deal where sometimes the middle safety and the will ended up on the same side, and because the Mike was our 4th rusher, I lost the Mike's responsibility. So, like, if you think about it, the way we play our tight front stuff, the way we play our tight front stuff with our backer fits, a lot of times those 2 guys are A to C gap players, and when I use the Mike as a 4th, I lose him as that backside A gap player, and that's where I got to gain the middle safety. So I need to make sure the middle safety is constantly away from the will so that if we get runs to the strong side, he's in the alley in the C gap where he is every time anyways. But if we get runs to the weak side and the will goes to the C gap, the middle safety's got to slow down so that he can be the A gap player because we've lost the Mike, if that makes sense. I know a lot of these things would make more sense on paper, but hopefully you guys can follow along to what we're talking about. So, trying to cancel gaps with the D-line was always a theory. Playing the 2 and the 4 was a deal where, all right, well, if the middle safety's got to take the responsibility of the Mike, well, if I take the A gap away by playing a 2 and a 4 to the side that the Sam and the middle safety are on, and I play a 3 and a 5 on the side that the will's on, well, now if we get runs towards the will, I have a little more presence backside with the 2 and the 4. That freaks people out because the ball, just like tight front, the ball is going to be off the pool table really quick to that side. But if it's the side of the Sam linebacker, I feel like we always have an edge. Where we got hurt this year in our tight front stuff was things that went away from the Sam that got wrapped around the 4-eye. So when they blocked down on the 4-eye, they could get 2 pullers up on the Mike and the will. Eugene, you need to look into it. It's really neat. And I think there's a lot of merit to it. Obviously, pass rush freaks people out. I get it. Short edge freaks people out. I get it. But if you always had a 2-eye and a 4-eye to the side of the Sam or the nickel, I think that C gap is supported a little bit better. And if you put the 3 and a 5 away, there's only one open gap inside. So now for me, like in the 3-by-1 world, if the middle safety's removed in 3-by-1 and there's only one gap in there, then I think the will now only has one gap to play. He's got an A gap to play. And if the ball goes to the trip side, he knows he can be over the top as long as you have a safety or somebody behind him to play cutback. And for us, the way we play 3-by-1, we would always have a safety behind there or a clouded corner, somebody that can play behind the will, basically is what I'm saying. So I think it's possible. So to me, like any of the 2-back, 2-by-1, 3-by-1 world, you would leave one gap open inside if you wanted to play that front from 3 high. The bigger thing is I think when you get 2-by-2, now I think you either have to gap exchange the A and the B gaps, and because now for us, the will would be out of the box. You could theoretically, you could lock the backside and do things to leave the will in the box. But like if we wanted to play our base coverages from 4 down, 3 high, the will and the Sam both have to be out of the box. That's the way we play it. When we're tight 3 high, the Mike is still in the box, and the middle safety is a run fitter. That's the tight with the Mike is 4, the middle safety's 5, Sam and Will are 6 and 7. So basically, we have the same numbers that a 4-2-5 team would have in 2-by-2, 10 personnel, right? So, if we were playing 4 down theories from 3 high, and teams gave us 2-by-2, and my head coach told me that the Eagles or the Chiefs, maybe I don't know if it was the Eagles did it to the Chiefs or the Chiefs did it to the Eagles. Every time they were in 10 personnel 2-by-2, they lined up with double twos and double fours because it was all zone read stuff. So they took away the inside zone part with all the linemen. And then the quarterback pull game was there for the backers and people that were removed because there was also like a lot of stack sets and wide splits and those kind of college type theories. So um, I did not see it live, but I'll have to go back and watch it if I can. He said that in the 2-by-2 open world, the Chiefs and the Eagles were playing 2-2s and 2-4s, which is kind of what we would have to do. Or you would play a 2 and a 4, a 3 and a 5, and a 3 and a 5 would have to gap exchange or stunt to get the A and a B gap taken care of. So whether you brought the 5 under the 3, behind the 3 to take that away, or if you brought them both under like a pirate stunt. But again, pass rush. Everybody freaks out about pass rush, especially from 4 down when you don't have a contained player because, now pass rush to me is not. It's one of the least concerns I have. I don't worry about it. I never think about it. Do we do things to generate pass rush? Yes. Do we add 4th, 5th, 6th rushers? Yes. But to me, and I just looked at this the other day, and I'm gonna look at it further. Maybe you coach in a different setting than I do, but in Northeast Florida where I am, guys do not sit in the pocket and throw the ball. You can count on your hand the number of 12 to 15 yard or longer passes that are completed from the pocket. So quarterbacks don't hold on to the ball. Drop back passing is not really anywhere near as big of a deal as most people think it is. The passing game is quick, intermediate, bubbles, nows, chunk throws down the field, yes, but I don't. The ball is out of the quarterback's hands so quickly that pass rush to me, I don't worry about it. When we play tight, the Mike's our 4th rusher. Do I worry about contain? Hell yeah, I worry about contain more than I worry about pass rush because when the quarterback gets out, that's when to me all the shit happens. And a lot of our throws that we gave up down the field this year were scrambles, sprint out, things where the ball got to the edge. So I would worry about sprint out. I would worry about the side of the 2 and the 4. The 4 would have to ricochet or do something since I don't have a secondary contained player. That's what I would worry about more than I think the run game would take care of itself. I think you'd be in a great position to play a lot of the run game that you're going to see. Pass rush would be an issue. A lot of people ask, do you worry about the ball falling off the table that quick? No, because that's where I want the ball. For us, we wanted to deny. We went to tight 3 high for a couple reasons. 1, personnel. 2, I think 3 high is a world where quarterback coaches don't necessarily know how to treat it yet. When they go through their offseason training and their manual stuff, they don't know whether it's split field. They don't know whether it's middle of field open or closed. So we were tight 3 high for a couple of reasons. Personnel, I think 3 high affects quarterbacks and offensive coordinators big time. Tight front because we wanted no bubbles inside. We wanted all runs to be pushed. So that would be like my argument is, yes, the ball falls off the table quick. And yes, against certain teams, that is certainly an issue. But if we know that that's where the ball's going, shouldn't we be able to fit runs faster and a little bit better? If we know the runs that we see versus tight front, shouldn't we be able to practice more efficiently? We've seen almost no ISO theories, right? There's no B gap bubble. So every theory we see and a lot of the gap theories we see is constantly the ball going C gap or wider. Are there some teams that can knock us out? Yes. And there, do we give up vertical runs? Yes, we do. But on paper, in theory, with 2 4 eyes and a nose in there, you're basically getting the ball to go wider. Now, does that freak people out? Yes. Do you have to work a bunch on tackling in space? Yes. Are there matchups that you probably don't want the ball out there? Yes. But those same matchups that you don't want the ball out there, you probably don't want it ripping in the A or the B gap either. So, we never have to worry about ISO blocks. We never have to worry about linebackers taking on isolation theories in tight front, at least, right, on paper. So we know the way we're fitting runs. We know what our backers need to work on. We know where our middle safety needs to be. We know where we need to get our extra help from. Do we have to do more work with safety setting an edge on a puller? Yes. Our safeties have to understand that guards and tackles are going to get around the corner in tight. And if you're the force player, you're going to have to come down and hard joint that. Am I asking you to destroy that block? No. Am I asking you to hat and hands that block? No. I'm asking you to hard joint it. And we work on that technique a bunch and trying to create that firm front side, shoulder, tricep, bicep, forearm to where when we're down in there low with that safety, he's got to be willing to stick his nose in there and take that on, because if you play tight front, the Mike and the Will are going to be running, but so are the guard and the tackle or the center, whoever they're pulling on the other. Those guys are constantly going to be around the horn also because they're blocking the 4-eye down. So again, the 2 and the 4, if I was 4 down, I have no problem doing it. We do it and tighten the balls out there. Recreating contained to the side of the 2 and 4 would be the issue. So Eugene, when you say pass rush, yes, that would be a concern. But to me, more so from a concern, not from a concern of rushing the passer, but from a concern of keeping him in the pocket, which obviously is pass rush, right? So, but again, I think if you go back and study and chart your games, find out how many passes are completed 15 yards down the field from the pocket. There really aren't that many, and most of them are probably chunk throws. I asked a couple of my friends this the other day, as offensive guys or defensive guys, in the last 15 or 20 years, how many times can you say that you've seen 15-yard digs completed from the pocket in the teams, either your team doing it or the teams you play doing it? And that's a legitimate question that I've asked people. Why cross, flood, over the top? Yes. Okay. That under Sam, over Mike, kind of why cross, climb route. Yes, I get that. The 15-yard dig or dagger, I do not see people throwing that from the pocket in high school. Doesn't, in my world, I don't see a ton of it. It's, even I would argue that you don't even see as many curl throws anymore. You don't see now, maybe split field, maybe people are gone away from curl flat, but in the NFL, the theory now is a lot of the throws guys are making are in the air 10 yards or less. Herbert for the Chargers threw for over 4,000 yards this year. And on his completions, I think the average distance of the ball, or from the line of scrimmage, the ball traveled less than 8 yards on like a insane amount of his completions, 60 to 70% of his completions. And he threw for 4,000 yards, because of all the theories that are out there now, between your matchups and your spacing and, your crosser theories and your shallow stuff and your drive stuff and, your mesh stuff. And then all your choice routes, those are the balls that are being thrown down, right? So I did a video the other day on think about on defense. We always talk about top down. We always talk about avoiding chunk plays, passing plays over 20 yards or 25 yards or explosive plays. We got to eliminate those. Well, today's passing game is a little bit different than it's ever been, in my opinion. Do you still see chunks? Yes. Do you still see go balls? Yes. But if you study the numbers, if you, they're all vertical choice and their vertical run game, vertical choice. That's the simplicity of what they do. So I agree with you, Philly. But in the NFL now, you're starting to get a lot of these throws that are now under 10 yards, and they're choice and option routes and matchups, and their shallow routes and their crossers. And that's kind of now more of the world people are living in. And especially in our game with the quarterbacks and the pass protection that we see, I don't think there's a lot of guys that throw the ball from the pocket. So maybe we should kind of change a little bit and play more flooded coverages and play more underneath defenders. Still got to defend the deep ball. We're always going to work on defending the deep ball. We're always going to work on out of phase drills. We're always going to work on playing through the hands. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, from a coverage standpoint, maybe we should challenge things a little bit more underneath, and maybe we should be a little bit more aggressive. Like, one of the things I'm looking at in the offseason, and definitely from our bearish double edge looks, is playing more of a man cut concept, where instead of playing it as one free, instead of playing one free, or instead of playing a low robber and a high robber, what if you could send 5, play man to man on the skills? And again, we're in a 3-3-5 world with 3 safeties, so we have 5 skills on the field that should be able to play man at any time. So it's easier for us. But for us in our world, What if our corners and our two safeties played man to man on 4 skills, and the Mike and the middle safety were extra players that could fit runs, and they were vision and break players on the quarterback, so that they could defend crossers and they could cut crossers. We play a bunch of, a bunch is probably the wrong word, but in some really key situations, we play drop 8 coverages where the corner and the 3 safeties play man to man, and the 3 backers play cut stuff underneath, and we vision and break drop them just like a hot pressure, or just like a 6-man hot or a 6-man eyes deal. And one of the reasons we do that is we play man, and then we help them. Now we're not helping them over the top. We do play man underneath with help over the top. All part of your answers, right? But to me, the man stuff is more the shallows, the meshes, the picks, the rubs. So when you play with 3 backers underneath playing kind of vision and break, they can fit runs. And if they don't get runs, they can now kind of be in the vicinity. There was one play in particular last year from the 3rd down from like the 6-yard line going in, and I called that coverage. And again, you're only rushing 3. I called that coverage, and we got mesh, and the man player was definitely beat, and they completed the low mesh about 4 yards down the field, and my cut linebacker made the tackle at the 3-yard line or the 2-yard line, and we held them to a field goal, which was huge in that game. Just think about more exotic, aggressive coverages where you're playing man with more underneath help. You're sending 5, but you're playing your coverages in a less traditional way. So that's just something to think about. So the overhang to the 4-eye side for us, it's not that much different. If 2's removed and we're playing palms, he's the apex player. He's going to set the edge. If 2 gets to a point where we can't do that, then we play different coverages. We very rarely, versus 2 removed, we will play quarters from time to time and play him head up to outside of 2. But I don't think it fits well in the 4-eye world. When the ball's getting to the C-gap that quick, I think you need C-gap presence. So for us, it's always protecting the C-gap away from the nickel. The nickel is really I don't treat him any different than I used to in a 4-2-5. He's the guy that's playing swing deep at 3. He's the guy that is helping us set the edge and be the force player to that side. You definitely got to work the schemes. You're going to see more now. If teams want to run power, he's probably going to get blocked by the fullback. So you've got to work on hard joining those type blocks and things. And you got to understand that the ball is going to be on him a lot quicker than it used to be because you're not protecting him with a 3 and a 5 or a shade and a 5. But as far as how we treat it, we don't treat it any differently than we ever did. I think there's some pictures we got to give him that change a little bit. Like the fullback, he would in the 4-2-5 world, the fullback would always kick the end, or they would arc release to the Mike and read the end. The Sam never had to deal with. Now he's almost like he's dealing with blocks that he would have played as a 9 technique versus tight end teams where they down block and he's got the fullback coming at him. And if the fullback's 3, then it's kind of wreck it or run with it type deal. And if he's coming to kick you out, his demeanor is going to be different than if he's going to the flat. Even if he was going to the flat, if you go try and hard joint that and take him on, if you wreck it, you don't have to run with it. So it's hard for him to out leverage you if you knock him on his ass. So if that makes sense, Eugene, I don't treat the nickel or the apex any different to the side of the 4-eye. I don't, if it's 2 removed, we're going to be in palms day 1 every day of the week. We will play some man stuff behind the Sam and let him play palms while the corner and safety, to me, what some people would call either match quarters or like I see a lot of people call it goal line quarters or whatever they want to call it. To me, I don't tag the word quarters with it because if the safety has 2 out, it's not quarters to me. And again, that's my soapbox. That's my pet peeve. I'm an old school guy. Quarters was taught to me a certain way. If my Sam linebacker doesn't have 2 to the flat, then it's not quarters to me. If I play my safety screwed down on 2 out, then to me, it's more of a man deal. We're doing the same thing. So it's not really, it's a waste of time to argue. That's just one of those pet peeves I have when people tie the word quarters. And again, in football, you can tie any word you want to anything because there's no true dictionary or thesaurus, so to speak. Dictionary is probably the wrong word, but there's no thesaurus or there's no true word bank to say that this word means this and that word means that. So quarters can be tied to anything. But I've been on here for an hour and 15 minutes, guys. I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate you guys being here. Uh, if you get a chance to leave me a message on any of my stuff or on Twitter, if we were back in the clinic world, what do you want to see from a clinic experience? What is your idea of a good clinic from speakers wise, topics wise? Do you need to have culture philosophy guys while also having technique fundamental guys, while also having scheme guys, while also having a strength guy and a special teams guy? Do you want to see more about drills and what guys are doing? Do you want to see more about schemes and protection pieces? Let me know what you would want to see. I think the clinic world is broken right now. That's just my opinion. Um, and like I said, when I started this YouTube live out, I want to get back into running clinics the way we ran the Play Fast clinic because I think we can fix a lot of that. I need your help to fix it, though. I need to know. I have my own opinion, but I need to know what you guys like and don't like about clinics. What do you want from clinics? Do you want a more social aspect of it? Do you want more breakout sessions where the rooms are smaller, but guys can go knee deep into their that's out there, Panadero. You can find that. There is a Football for Dummies book out there. The problem is, I think it changes now because football for Dummies 25 years ago is different because that was probably Football for Dummies in a world of two back, 21 personnel, and now we're in a spread world. So maybe somebody needs to come up with a new Football for Dummies book. But again, what would you like in the clinic world? What do you want to see? Do you want more of a social setting, more breakout rooms? Do you want something tied to the clinic? I think it would be really neat to have a golf outing tied to the clinic, and maybe some type of two-man scramble or some type of two-man best ball where guys can come in and you can make it a little fun and your sponsors can have some prizes there. And, you do things kind of like a normal golf scramble or something like that. Maybe some other things that guys like doing, maybe cornhole tournaments or just trying to find a way to make, what I think about talks, right? I think there needs to be more scheme, more techniques, fundamentals. If you're going to have philosophy and culture, don't have it 15 times. You need a strength guy. You need a special teams guy. I'm all in on that stuff. But I also think the experience in the clinic world itself needs to be a little bit more than just X's and O's, right? So what would you guys like? What would you want to see? What's important to you? Is the venue important? Is the weather important? Is the scenery important? Is, the local food around, is that important? Does it need to be a huge venue or can it be done in a smaller venue? All of those things that we would like to that we would like to do. And I would like to, if not this year, then 2024, I definitely want to get my nose back in the clinic world. I want to run clinics. I'd like to run more than one. I'd like to run them in different parts of the country if we could, because I think, and again, I'm 50 years old, kind of in the second half of life now. There's some things that I want to do that I haven't really done. We did do a clinic. It was awesome. I want to get back and build on that. Not trying to take out Glazier and Nike. That's not what I'm saying. But I feel like we could put something together that would be a better experience for coaches than those two. Again, don't have the financial backing they do. Don't have the technology at their hands that they have for their websites and the ability to videotape and record and sell and do all those other things. Could we get there one day? Maybe. But I think I can, with our following and what we do and the knowledge that we have as coaches on this channel, together, I think we can create a better clinic experience. And I'll stick to my guns on that. I think we can create one that people want to go to. I think we can take more feedback. I really don't think they take, I know they always ask for feedback, but I don't know if they listen, because there's no way Nike can listen to feedback and have 6 big name head coaches come in that all talk about culture and what they do in the locker room. Like, there's no way you could be listening to feedback because I don't want that talk 6 times. And I don't know how many other people do. I want it once or twice. Yes, I want to hear Mike Norvell talk about the change at Florida State. You're damn right I do. But I don't want to hear 7 people talk about it. I don't want to hear it from James Franklin, Mike Norvell, and Dino Babers and somebody. I want to hear 1 or 2 of those guys talk to me about ball, talk to me about schemes, talk to me about practice. Kirby Smarts was the best. Kirby Smart showed video on drills that they use and why they use them and how they use them at Georgia and then where they show up in games. It was phenomenal. It was one of the best hour clinics I've ever been at. he basically talked like he was an assistant at Alabama again. So that's what I want. Let me know what you guys want. Again, appreciate you guys being here on a Saturday night. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for making this thing flow with the chat room and not just me talking the entire time. Hope your off season's going great. If you want any videos done, let me know. If you have any questions on the thank you, Philly, for always being here and making these more than just me talking into a computer screen. If you have anything you want to see or anything you want done, and Philly, I'll research any of my buddies that play poach or solo, and I'll see what they try to get from their backside safety when 3 doesn't go vertical. I'll see who's playing. I know there's some really good coaches down here that still play it. So I'll look into them doing it. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that was always where I struggled in that coverage, and we don't play that coverage anymore. So I might play it next year, though, so I may be willing to talk to you about what you do. Or not willing, I may want to talk to you about what you do because I haven't played that coverage in a long time. Thank you, Jacob Dawson. So, again, hope the offseason's great. Any videos you want, anything you want me to do, I will try and do it. If I can't do it, I'll try and find somebody that can. Anything else you want on from the PlayFast side on the YouTube channel, if you want interviews or other coaches talking about things, just let me know. Obviously, like I said, content creation is tough. It's tough when you have 490 football videos out there in the last 10 years. So I'm always ears open. What do you guys want? What do you want to hear? What do you want to see? If I can do it and I can do it halfway decent, then I would love to get out there and do it for you guys. So thanks for being on tonight. I hope you're all safe. I hope you're all healthy out there. If you're in parts of the country that are cold, come down to Florida. It's going to be 87 tomorrow. It was 86 today in North Florida in Jacksonville. So I've got to get up at 5 o'clock and roll the greens at the golf course that I live at. So it's nice to not have 15 layers of clothing on and roll greens in 45-degree mornings. So hope you're good. Hope you're safe. Hope everything's going well. Thank you for everything you do for me. Thank you for everything you do for Play Fast. Thank you for being on here tonight. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. Shout out to Dome Hats for my Play Fast hat. And I will see you guys next time.